We're getting to the point in time where I feel like there's so much to talk about heading into the 2022 NHL Entry Draft, but it's kind of tough to track just where exactly everything is coming from. I have a whole bunch of videos that I want to make about the first overall pick. I want to talk about the Canadiens and all the stuff we heard from Kent Hughes about how the Habs are apparently not sure whether or not they're going to take Wright or Slafkovsky and why. That is not really anything you should be concerned about. There are so many things to go over. But sources and conversations, radio hits, TV hits, it's all getting kind of convoluted, so I'll leave it to articles like this one on ProHockeyRumours.com to put everything in a very neat and collected place, which makes it easier for me to just kind of keep on track, and it makes it easier for you because we can put everything on the screen, you can read along, and it's all fine and dandy. So today I wanted to talk about the Montreal Canadiens and their drafting strategy heading into this year's entry draft. There were a few sources, one on TSN, it was Darren Dreger talking about this on TV, as well as this article right here, just kind of summarizing what the belief is the Montreal Canadiens might end up trying to do. And if I tried to summarize the entire sentiment in one or two sentences, it would pretty much just be this. The Montreal Canadiens are probably going to try to move up in this year's draft. And, of course, when I say that, I'm not saying, oh, they're going to move up from first overall to, like, -1. No, that's not really what we're talking about here. They're going to keep the first overall pick. That's not anything we're going to dispute here. But there are some other picks they have. The Calgary first from this season, the Edmonton second, Anaheim, Carolina thirds. They have a fourth from the Tampa Bay Lightning as well as the Rangers, not to mention the St. Louis seventh that they might go out there and start using as a little bit of bait heading into the next few rounds. So, let's go over onto ProHockeyRumours.com and look at this post. Off-season notes. Trotz, the Canadiens draft strategy, as well as Brett Kulak. In this little piece right here, they summarize what it was that Darren Dreger said on an earlier TV edition of TSN. The sentiment pretty much was that the Canadiens are going to try to move up, but what exactly is there to that? This article kind of goes over it nicely. At first, it might seem as though the Montreal Canadiens are one of the few teams at the NHL Draft who are best situated to sit tight and make their draft picks at their allotted slots. But that may not be the route the team chooses. The Canadiens, who own the first overall pick and host the draft itself, have a new president of hockey operations in Jeff Gorton. One thing that defined the later years of Gorton's tenure as GM of the Rangers was his aggressiveness in trading up in the draft in order to secure desired players. Now, before we go over that, yes, Jeff Gorton, Montreal guy, former New York guy, and he's a guy that kind of, at least based off of everything that we've seen, apparently might be in a position to make somewhat of a splash or two in the draft in order to give the fans something to cheer about. Hey, the draft is in Montreal, there are so many Montreal fans, it's the first time having an in-person draft in 3 seasons because 2020 and 2021 were virtual drafts, so why not give the fans something to cheer about? Why not give them some trades to get excited for, right? In a video released by the Rangers as part of their 2020 draft coverage, Gorton can be seen imploring his draft war room to find players worthy of moving up for. Gorton traded up in the 2018 draft to secure defenseman K'Andre Miller, and he also did the same in the 2020 draft in order to select Braden Schneider. Now, pause right there. K'Andre Miller, Braden Schneider, 2 players that have been very good for the Rangers, 2 players suiting up for the team when they went to the Eastern Conference Finals. I think you probably remember these names during those games against Tampa Bay, right? These guys were players drafted as early as 2020, so just 2, 3, 4 years removed from their NHL drafts, they are playing in Stanley Cup Playoff games that are meaningful, and they're actually doing a pretty good job. Now, I'm not going to go out there and say that K'Andre Miller and Braden Schneider are the same. I definitely do think that K'Andre Miller is a lot more developed. The fact that he went to college, he did all this stuff, and he's maturing in the NHL. It's a lot more advanced so far compared to what we have seen out of Schneider, but the fact that Schneider was already on the team, playing for the Rangers, and doing some pretty alright things as they went to the 3rd round in and of itself is great for a 2020 pick. Gorton's Canadiens own 14 picks at the 2022 draft. Yeah, that's a lot of picks. And with that in mind, combined with the evidence of Gorton's prior drafts, it seems clear the Canadiens are a team to watch in terms of trading up. TSN's Darren Dreger seems to agree, reporting on the video segment on TSN that the Canadiens are going to try and move up at the draft. With the draft held in Montreal, the combination of the number 1 pick and the home team's desire to trade up could make this one of the more entertaining drafts in recent memory. And so now we take a look at the draft board, because the Montreal Canadiens, their current selection of picks, if we go over to Tankathon and we see how everything is laid out, the top 30 picks pretty much are already set in stone. It's only 31 and 32 that are currently up in the air because those 2 picks involve teams playing for the Stanley Cup. But Montreal currently has the 1st overall pick, which is their own. They have the 26th overall pick from Calgary in the Toffoli trade, and then you can kind of just fill in the blanks as to how everything goes in the next few rounds. Of course, because they were a bad team in 2022, they also have the 33rd overall pick, which is the 1st pick in the 2nd round. They then have Edmonton's at 62. There are a whole bunch of opportunities here for the Canadiens to spot players that they like that just might end up slipping down the draft boards in this year's draft, because, let's face it, in the NHL draft, there are always players that end up slipping that you would not have expected to slip. And so for Montreal, it's a lot more of a question as to who those players are, rather than just the question as to what they're going to do with their draft picks, I feel. Because, as the article said, I mean, the Canadiens, they have so many freaking picks in this year's draft that it's almost unreasonable to assume that they're going to use them all and eventually keep all these guys in the system, because let's face it, you have 3 years to sign your prospects after you draft them to entry-level deals in order to keep them in your system. Unless, of course, they go to college, but, there isn't really too much room nowadays to draft, 14 players and actually have all of them project as legitimate prospects for your hockey team. And so why not go the quality route instead? Hey, right now we're at the 18th overall pick, it's the Dallas Stars, and let's say Dallas is interested in trading the pick away. Maybe Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon say, hey, there's a guy that we really like that's available here at 18, and they want to move the pick. How about we send them our 26th overall pick, and then one of our extra thirds, because we've got 3 third-round picks this year. We move up 8 spots, we take the guy we really, really like that we were not sure was going to be available at 26, and everybody's happy. The Habs have multiple opportunities here. And notice the type of trade that I just talked about. It doesn't even involve a Josh Anderson. It doesn't involve any prospects already in the system or any other players that are in the mix here. It's just, hey, the Habs have a lot of draft picks. Why not go up and use some of them to get some other players that you very much like? Because, I don't know about you, but I know it's cool and all to have all the extra picks in the 4th and 7th rounds, but you could leverage that. You have so much that it wouldn't really hurt you getting rid of 2 or 3 of your 4 to 7 round picks in order to get an extra second for a player that you really like. And I assume the Montreal Canadiens would have probably done their homework on this NHL draft class, considering how badly they performed this season. They kind of knew they were in a position to get some of these top guys anyway. So if anybody does end up slipping that the Canadiens would have on their radar, I definitely do think it's a good idea for them to move up. They have so many picks that it's kind of useless to keep them all and not try to leverage any of them for top-tier talent later on in the draft. But you can talk to me in the comments all your thoughts about the Canadiens and their drafting strategy. Who in your mind stands out to the Montreal mold as potential prospects in this year's entry draft? Let me know your thoughts in the comments about who you think the Canadiens should take, where do you think they should move to, and maybe even other teams that you feel like the Canadiens could be trade partners with. I just brought up Dallas because it's a random team that happened to be in the 18th overall spot, and I said 18th, so I kind of like that number, but who knows? Maybe there's a 2nd overall conversation that's happening with New Jersey. I doubt it, but maybe there is. The Blue Jackets have 2 first-round picks in the top 12. Maybe you pry away one of those. Maybe it's all circumstantial, based off of how the draft goes and who gets taken. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about players, picks, and anything else of intrigue that you feel the Montreal Canadiens could be involved with. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.